Aloha! Thank you for joining the Sharpest College Football Podcast's Island Time Week 7 preview. I am BuckMetrics, joined as always by Robert Martin. And graciously filling in for Duck is our guy, even a more Big Ten guy than the two guys who host the Big Ten podcast here, myself and Robert, Isaiah Walker. Isaiah, we appreciate you filling in for Duck on such short notice here.
Of course, happy to be here.
Happy to see you. Going to be nice to get a little different perspective. Having said that, let's dig into our first game here. Those who know will see that this is a top 25 game, according to the MAP Most Accurate poll by our friends at Pipeline, PYPELINE _ on Twitter. Top 25 game between, per the MAP poll, number 23 North Texas, number 24 South Florida. Good matchup here. Big implications. This actually probably significant in who might get the playoff bid for the G5 ranks. Let me grab my laser pointer right here. Come on, darling. There we go. All right. Interesting. We're pretty much even here on the offensive side of the ball between South Florida and North Texas. Little nod goes to South Florida in the Apex Plus. A little bit more on the ground game. North Texas, this seems like a draw. South Florida more explosive, which is interesting. Defensive side of the ball, I think, is where we might have a little bit of a difference here. North Texas, it's about even here on the defensive Apex Plus, but we're seeing some problems here with the defensive GGAB Plus. That can be a problem because South Florida is not, as nice as their numbers are, they're not just throw it all over the place. They like to spread you out and run from the, how do I say this, a little bit more like a Texas State than some of these just throw, the old classic Mike Leach. What's interesting, though, is I think that this is going to surprise some people. When I adjust the metrics, when I adjust here to get my predictive metrics, I've got North Texas stronger on both sides of the ball here. I've got them with a stronger offensive rating, stronger defensive rating. Interesting because South Florida has played, help me out here, Boise and Florida and Miami. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Interesting. Maybe I have to take a look at North Texas' schedule. I don't remember them having any seriously tough games.
They haven't.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. It's pretty bad. They're at Western Michigan. Not really much there. They destroyed Washington State, which really doesn't count as here, and destroyed Army. Beat South Alabama by 14.
Yeah, that hasn't aged so well, though. They just lost to Troy. But Western Michigan, maybe it's not great, but at least it's aged. They've acquitted themselves decently since. I throw this all together. My metrics has North Texas by 11. Athena has it by 11. Robert, you've got South Florida by 2, which is more what I expected until I ran the numbers here. I'm not going to go against the dual model play. It's interesting that my model has North Texas by such a wide margin here. I would think that they would be closer to a field goal or so. What do you think, Robert?
It's interesting. I thought my model was going to favor North Texas here as well. It just didn't. I was a little surprised by that. But again, this is a very close game, right? I've got 33-31, basically a coin flip here, right? This is far from some team. You have a far clearer favorite in North Texas. North Texas has looked good for most of the games. There was a late comeback by Army. That looked a little concerning. There's been some moments in some games that North Texas has been concerning. USF, however, has beaten Boise, which appears to be a better G5 team. Not like a good G5 team, but definitely among a better tier of G5 teams. Early on, it looked like they could be really bad, but they were able to hold their own against Notre Dame there for a while. And then obviously the USF played Miami. They beat Florida looking a bit better after they beat Texas. And Miami, of course, probably one of the best teams in the country. So that is helping South Florida here a little bit. But again, it's North Texas has looked good, but just a little weak at some times. I'm intrigued by this game. I can't wait to watch this game. This game is Friday night. This is arguably one of the better Friday night games we've seen all season. And it is a really good game, and it deserves to be a top-ranked matchup, right? And this is, again, one of the reasons why we love the Pipeline MAP, because this should be two top 25 teams. They should be two top 25 teams. This basically is an elimination game for among the top games of the American, right? But this is basically an elimination game for the CFP. So this is a huge game, and I think it's exciting we get this on a Friday night. I wish other people were hyping it more, but it's a great game.
I might push back a little bit on this in that I don't know if we'll have any undefeated G5 teams or G5.5 by the time the season ends. We're just about out, I think. So this might be, I don't know if it's elimination, but it could be like first tiebreaker thing. Definitely, I'll put it this way: American has a leg up in the bid. since the committee needs to have things shoved in front of it, and Old Dominion hasn't been shoved enough. Anyways, back to this game. Isaiah, I was surprised by my model. Didn't expect to have... I think South Florida Robert's model was more than expecting. What are you expecting in this one?
Yeah, this is a great game, and I'm totally with the poll here. I think I have these two 26 and 27, something like that, in my top my ranking. So they're right on the rank kind of cusp for me. This is like one of those great games that nobody's talking about, which is unfortunate because these are such great teams. You've got South Florida, who's battle tested, right? The Boise win, even if Boise isn't what they were in the preseason, still a well coached and a solid G5 program. And you've got this North Texas team that just looks really good, taking care of business. And I think when we talk about this as the G5 eliminator for the playoff too, the other consideration is you have Memphis in the American, and they're 6-0. North Texas is 5-0, and South Florida is 4-1 because they have the loss to Miami. But you take a loss here if you're South Florida, that drops you to 4-2. That's going to be pretty tough to come back from, especially because if we're thinking about the way the committee works, if we know how the committee works, they're going to see Memphis first. They're not going to see North Texas and South Florida. So you have to battle that. When I looked at this game, I pegged it basically as a pick'em. I don't know if I can agree with your model, Buck.
Yeah, no offense taken, believe me.
Here, but I pegged it as a pick'em. There was some line movement on this. When I bet this game, it was very close to even. And I ended up siding with North Texas. I got them at minus 105 on the money line. And my essential thought on that was, like I said, I pegged these two teams as even. I think this is just a spot bet. For me, I really like North Texas in this spot at home. I think this is the chance where you really do get to make a statement and say, hey, people are maybe hyping South Florida over us because they have those great wins against Boise and against Florida. But our win over Washington State, even though it's a quote unquote, I don't know, do we call it a Power 5 win? It's not really. And it's not a great team, but right, they want to make a statement here. And so I grabbed them just on a spot play. I can't wait to watch this game. I think these are two great teams no matter who wins it. But I will be watching this one before I tuned into Rutgers, Washington. So
there you go. Yeah. Also, as a Wisconsinite, you'll probably appreciate this. It's 4:30 my time, which means early happy hour in Newport Beach.
Yes, on a Friday.
Yes. How about instead of elimination, let's go with this. How about it's the first game of something of a round robin in that South Florida still has to play Memphis. And both these teams, I didn't even realize this till I looked at this, have to also play undefeated Navy, who is really under the grid here. Now, I don't think they've had the strength of opponent that these guys have, but this is where it's going to get really interesting for the American. Yeah, Robert, doesn't sound like you have a play. I don't have a play on this. Isaiah, are you just watching with intent but not material financial intent?
Yeah, I put a small play on North Texas. Again, it's not a spot where I'm like saying, yeah, this is something I like fully recommend, but I think it is a good spot for North Texas, so I put a little bit on them. And again, I got that before the line movement. That's when South Florida, I think, was still favored by about a point.
Nice.
One thing I will just quickly say about that, I want to add just in-game betting. This presents a bit of an opportunity here, right? We expect a close game if, say, North Texas or even USF jumps up to a quick 7-0 lead, betting the other team plus a 3.5, or if it goes the other way, like, you might be able to get a nice little hedge here. Keep that in mind. Keep watching this game live. If someone scores early and maybe like the other one, like, there might be an option here, especially if North Texas scores. You might be able to get like a USF plus 7.5 depending, or something. Like, there's going to be some live betting options in this game. So watch this game for fun, but also watch this game with your sportsbook open up on another page.
Yeah, and I think the last thing too on this game is I would agree with you. There's a lot of live betting opportunities on this one, and I think both the metrics that we have and the total indicate that, because we got a total of 65.5. We have metrics that indicate that the offenses here are better than the defenses.
Yeah,
probably a decent bit. So all of that tells me that I think it's going to be a close game. That's a shootout.
Yeah,
so they definitely have opportunities there.
Good point. A lot of trading punches here. It feels. Next game, just to introduce a concept here. When we start off two games under 500 on the dual model plays, I use the concept, refer to a lot as regressing to the mean, hoping that we kind of get back above 55% as we've done the first 3 years of the pod. I know I like to rely on numbers, metrics, and all those kind of stuff, but just to introduce an intangible here, it just feels like I'm going to see a huge regression to the mean. Look, I'm not the most objective guy here, being a USC alum. I've had enough of the Jerry Neuheisel story. Good for him. It's run through maybe one news cycle too many again already. Good for him. He had a good game. It just feels like this is where reality steps in, and there's a severe kind of correction to UCLA's offense. They weren't that good. He was creative with his play calling. It also helps to face a defense where maybe 3 of the 11 guys on the other side of the ball are actually trying. I think that they have Michigan State's attention. When I look here, and this number's probably moved, I'm guessing. I just thought Michigan State would be a bigger favorite here. For all we've heard recently with kind of Penn State as a capstone, most recently about the travel, where this is significant travel, and UCLA just doesn't have nearly the talent of other teams that have been bested by the travel here. Nice game for Nico, still on the season, Apex Plus of 76. Yeah, that probably will be higher with the better play caller here, but let's just see how much. I'm still not convinced. The big thing here is UCLA's defense. I'm still not convinced they like to tackle. I think it's easier for these guys to tackle when you're playing guys that kind of aren't showing up. I like what Michigan State's done. They're still firmly, how do I say this? They're following the year 2 trajectory that I had expected under Jonathan Smith, as I'm pulling up my thing here. Yeah, 3-2. They look competent on offense. I'm a little surprised by their defensive rating. Is actually the best squad on the field according to my metrics here. My model has the Sparty by 12, so it's not a bettable margin, but that feels right. Athena has the exact same number. Robert actually has a shorter margin than the market here. He's got just Sparty by 6-6. Isaiah, let me just throw it to you. Are you buying my severe regression to the mean? And is Cinderella's coach going to turn to a pumpkin to some degree here?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to give UCLA credit, right? They were staring down the barrel of 0-12 with the coach gone. They lost the Northwestern game. Most people said that's the last one you have a shot in.
Yep.
And no matter how down you thought Penn State was after that win or the loss, another big game loss, right, against Oregon in overtime, it was like, okay, Oregon's also a really good team, so yeah, it's another big game loss, but that's understandable, right? But that game is unexplainable. It's as if the second that ball got picked off by Oregon to end that game, Penn State just said, oh, that's the season, and we're done.
Yeah.
And so I give you UCLA all the credit. They could have also said, oh, our season's done, our coach is gone, we don't have to show up. This is one of my favorite angles to bet in college football because it's an angle that really only exists in college football, right? Somebody gets fired at the pro levels, they're still pro athletes, right? They don't just quit on the season. This angle exists in college football where you get a fired coach or you get a team that plays the game of their life, and they beat somebody that they shouldn't have beaten, and almost always the next week they go back to what they are. And it already happened once this season, and I made money off it. Virginia Tech
fired their coach, yep.
And they went on the road to NC State, and they won the game outright. And then what did they do next week? They went home, and they lost to Wake Forest. And that's what I see here, right? I see UCLA, they got that big win. They got the 0-12 off their back. You're not going winless. That's a great story. You got something out of this season. But now you're picking up. You're going on the road. You're going to a Michigan State team. And by the way, this is a Michigan State team that cannot lose this game. Michigan State's still in position to get to a bowl, but they have to win every winnable game that's left on their schedule. If you lose this game, it's not happening. Michigan State's biggest week this year, it doesn't really match with the metrics you have, but it's their secondary still. You can still pass on this team. I've made a decent amount of money betting their overs. USC, Michigan State overhit, the Michigan State, Nebraska overhit. You can pass on them. You can get points on them. I don't think UCLA can do that. Not on the road, not in this situation. I don't trust that offense to repeat what they did. And I just think that this is a spot where Michigan State knows exactly what they do, what they need to do, and they get it done. So actually, I made 2 plays on this game. I made Michigan State first half -4.5, and I took Michigan State for the full game.
There might have been almost, how do I say this? The angle that UCLA faced that I think Virginia Tech had too was kind of like, I take it from a movie set in your fine city, Fight Club, where one of my favorite lines is, it's only after you've lost everything are you free to do anything. And you have that for one game. And then reality sets in that you're still homeless and you're Tyler Durden and you live in a dump. So, Robert, interesting little kind of comparison here. Who is tougher, indifferent Penn State, truly indifferent Penn State, or very interested Michigan State?
Yeah, this one is very interesting. So I will say that so basically when I simulate this, I actually like it literally in Python it goes through like line by line. So it'll spit out the two teams playing the game, and then it'll wait a couple seconds, then I'll get the next line. So sometimes I'm actually just straight up watching this, and I literally have FanDuel open up, and I'm literally betting stuff. I'm like, oh, this game, like sometimes that's how I do this. And this UCLA versus Michigan State came up on there, and I was like, okay, what's this line? I'm like literally getting ready to bet Michigan State here. I'm like, what's the line? It's got to be like 12 or something. And it came up less. It came up only Michigan State -6. And I'm like, that's weird. And I'm like, I would have expected a lot higher because I'm like, this is, again, as Isaiah said, this is 100% a fade spot. This is okay, great. You massively underperformed. You beat someone you had no shot of winning. You should be prime fade candidate this week. And that's generally what we've seen a lot. But my model had this. So I am a little torn here. Isaiah, you did also mention something interesting too last week with Virginia Tech. I will say though, and again, I agreed with you. I bet Virginia Tech against North Carolina, NC State. I had them in that game. I had spread money line in that game. But then the next week, it actually had my model actually I believe had Wake Forest outright. Either that or like a very small West Virginia Tech margin. So it did call that, but this one's calling a bit tighter. The argument you could make for UCLA is that Nico was okay, and then the rest of the team let them down, and now they're actually just doing better overall. That defense did let up a lot of points to Penn State, though. Now, to be fair, it is Penn State, but I think you could have done a little bit better there. This is the thing, right? It's Penn State played scared for a lot of the game, but then they had to play super aggressive, and I feel like if you knew they were going to play super aggressive, you could have, I don't know, covered some of the wide receivers better, or I don't know, stack the box or something. There's something they could have done probably more in that game. But on offense, they were great, right? I don't know. I want to fade UCLA here, and maybe I will find my way to fading UCLA here. But everything I know says Michigan State should win this game, should win it comfortably. Maybe the play here is like Aiden Childs overs here because the UCLA defense isn't that good. But I don't know. I think Michigan State should win this game, and it is cross country, right? But UCLA is on a bit of an uptrend, and I suspect that's what my model is catching because it's saying, oh, okay, hey, you were competitive against Northwestern, and then you took down Penn State, which was competitive against Oregon, another good team. So it maybe is building a little too much recency into that. So that might be something that's happening here. I don't know. I'd love to bet Michigan State here, but my model currently isn't letting me. We'll have to see.
Yeah. I think that obviously this is going to happen to a degree. That last game probably makes it, from a margin standpoint, just not enough there. I can't help but think I've been, after praising him last year and just crushing him this year, and kind of stumbling into the realization that Kotelnicki's been cowardly in terms of his play calling. I think the exact opposite of that is a guy like Jonathan Smith, who will look for any kind of weakness and just pick at it until basically you have to adjust, and then he'll go after what's vacated with your adjustment too.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure how much it's shown up, just whether it's on the record or Michigan State's kind of been put in a tough spot to start the season, right? They went at USC. They
at 11 p.m.
Yeah, exactly. Then they turn around and they go at Nebraska. Neither one of those games they were favored in. Neither one of those games they were expected to really be even competitive. You looked at the spread. So I think that it's really easy to look at this team and say, oh, they're 0-2. Oh, they lost both of these games by double digits. But you look under the hood and you watch the game, and I think you see just tremendous improvement from Aiden Childs, from this offensive staff. And I think some people probably have unrealistic expectations. Again, hey, it is only year 2 of Jonathan Smith, right? I'm already seeing people say, oh, no, I think it's time to start considering moving on. And then again, if you throw I know you want the record to be better, but if you throw the record away and you actually look and watch this team, they are so much better than they were last year. Yep. They play the fundamentals are better. It's getting cleaned up. They need to get more players in, especially on defense. But it's very clear to me that they are an improved team. And so for me, this is a spot where an 0-2 team with better optics than their record indicates shows, oh, hey, by the way, this is a better team.
Yeah. And it's not like they're dead. They're still in the upward trajectory, too. Not going to be a sleepwalking kind of mature product in Penn State. All right. According to Pipeline, here's our top 5 game. Indiana at Oregon. Has this one moved to like? I heard somebody quoting 9.5 now.
This opened, so this is interesting. This opened at Oregon minus 10.5. It went down to Indiana to Oregon minus 7.5. And since I've been watching it, it's been fluctuating between 7.5 and 8.5. I got it when I did bet the side I bet, I got it at 7.5. But I haven't seen it go past 8.5 again. It may depend on where you're looking though.
Okay.
Yeah, it started 9.5, but then after Penn State lost, it fell to 7.5.
Interesting. All right, so if I look at the numbers here, these two teams look like mirror images of each other. Little nod in the running game to Indiana, but Jesus, 195 is really nice GGAB plus. Similarly, nod to the Oregon pass defense here, but man, I would be delighted if my team had the defensive apex plus of Indiana has of 26 here. Geez, again, just a little bit of the nod offensively to Indiana, a little bit defensively to Oregon. My model has it a 3. Athena has it by 3 in favor of Oregon. Nod to the home field. Robert, your model has it by 8. I'm not playing this. It's within the margin. I will definitely watch this. I just don't have the stones to give more than a touchdown to Cignetti, I guess is just the thesis I start with and work back from there. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, there are not a lot, especially this year with Indiana, there are not a lot of teams that I would be laying more than a touchdown with against Indiana, if any, really. I think it's like Oregon and Ohio State, and that's it. Like, you give me Cignetti versus Cristobal, I'm betting Cignetti all day. I don't care what the spread is. And that's it, pretty much. Like, Penn State, like, no. That's gonna be a fun game in a few weeks. Is Indiana gonna be favored in that game? They might actually be, to be honest with you.
Yeah, where is that one? Is that at...
It's at Penn State.
It's at Penn State.
Oh, boy.
But it's going to be fascinating to see what that line is because if they do something stupid when that line opens, I think everyone's going to be ready to pounce.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair.
But no, this is the thing. Indiana was a great team last year, and they got into their heads a little bit against Ohio State, and then they actually came back against Notre Dame in the playoff. I don't think they're that team anymore. I think, and actually, everybody thought that. Everybody thought this is not the same team. It's like, it's not the same team. It's a better team now. That's the thing. It's a better team that's actually even scarier now. And I think they're far more competitive with Ohio State and Oregon this year. Oregon, though, I think the problem, though, is especially in your model and even to some extent in my model, it's now that Oregon beat Penn State, and they looked amazing. After that, they're like, man, they beat one of the top teams in the country. And now they beat a team that lost to a currently winless team. So that win got a lot worse in just 1 week's time. And I think that's what the Athena model and your model are picking up more. Mine is maybe a bit more static on that, maybe thinking. And again, right, there's dynamics at play because my model is a bit higher on UCLA. And then it's also higher on Oregon for beating the team that lost to UCLA. So conversely, if UCLA loses badly and this game is closer, then it's going to adjust that. So maybe my model is smarter than everybody else, or maybe it's worse. I don't know. That's the thing. It's going to be one or the other. Either UCLA is better than we think, or it's going to be worse than we think. So that's how that's going to shake out. But no, even if the Athena models are right, yeah, like a 3, that's not bettable in this game. A 3-point spread is not bettable. Not from a 7.5, really. That's not a thing you can bet, especially on the road. That's a really far road trip for Indiana, for anyone. Mind you, Indiana though. So. No, I'm excited to see this game. I can't wait to see this game. And again, this is another live betting opportunity, right? If Indiana scores a couple early, Oregon plus 3.5. If Indiana goes up like 14-0, Oregon plus 6.5, plus 7.5, right? Or if Oregon gets out and scores early, Indiana plus 11.5, Indiana plus 10.5, right? Those are great betting lines that you can grab right immediately there, probably right off of first possession. Where let this normalize a little bit, and it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game. 55 total is pretty high scoring. This is a live betting angle for me, but I'm excited to see this game. This is the question. I think I'll pose this. I'll reverse question here. We're going to do another reverse here. What game are we watching? Is it Indiana-Oregon or Red River? Because I'm actually starting to lean this game over Red River.
Yeah, I think we have Red River coming up too. So
okay.
I think but it's this one for me. Isaiah, I'm dying to hear who you bet because as Robert was talking through about like the teams that you could maybe give more than a touchdown to Cignetti, I would think like you would really want to bet on that team. Like it's not just, oh, that's a fair price. It wouldn't just strike me. Now, You can go ahead and pat me on that and say, there, Buck, that's cute, but I bet Oregon given the 7.5.
You'd think that, wouldn't you? Because I'm the Purdue fan, right? That means that I have to fade. I got to fade Indiana here, right? No, I'm. You know what? I'm very honest whether I come on here when we do our Big Ten preseason talk or whether I'm explaining my plays online when I get something wrong. And I already in the preseason, right? I didn't bet a full futures unit on it, but I bet a small amount on Indiana's win total under. And I said, the only thing I want to see from this team is to show me that you're ready for this moment, right? To show me that you're ready to be a team that is in the top of the polls multiple years in a row, that has expectations on them. And they've done that. They look great. This is a team that is better than last year's team. And a lot of people were saying one hit wonder. They were saying the schedule was bad and it was a fluke. It's not a fluke. The guy can coach. The team can play. These players are good. And they're not afraid to go to Oregon. This is a really tough place to play. One of the toughest places that you can play in all of college football. And I don't think they're going to be afraid to go there. Now, I think that you have to respect Dan Lanning. You have to respect this Oregon team. And I don't want to discount the Penn State win either, because it's that Penn State team that they played in Happy Valley in a whiteout. That was a Penn State team that was playing for their lives. That was playing for the narrative. That was playing for everything.
They tried.
The Penn State team that lost to UCLA looked like they were just done.
Yep.
So I think that's a very different game. And then on the Indiana side, right, the whole thing last year was, they're just the prettier version of Penn State. They can't win a big game. They're great when they're beating Purdue 66-0, but they played Ohio State and they lost, and they played Notre Dame and they lost. That's what the lazy narrative wanted to be. What did Indiana do when they played a ranked team? And it doesn't matter if you think Illinois was overranked, but what did they do? What was it, 63-10? 63-10, I think it was?
I think so.
And, I'm not high on Illinois' defense. I think Illinois' defense has a lot of problems, but Illinois' offense is good. And this Indiana team held them to 10 points.
Yeah.
And it wasn't fluky. It wasn't like Illinois kept getting to the red zone and then throwing interceptions. Indiana just was like, hey, this is our field and you're not moving on it. And then that Illinois team turned around and beat USC. So it's not like that Illinois team just was dead either. And then Indiana goes on the road to Iowa afterwards. And I've been seeing this again, right? They did struggle at Iowa. They didn't look very good. They were really suckered into playing like Iowa-style football. They were trying to run the ball when they shouldn't have been. Every pass down the field was open, but they were running the ball. But they won the game, right? Maybe they shouldn't have won the game, but they did win the game. And I think we all agree that Illinois is better than Iowa, right? So, why are people like, oh, there's the gotcha. They almost lost to Iowa. But, okay, but they beat Illinois 63-10. So I saw the line. Also, with the line I saw that opened up at 10.5 and then went almost immediately to 7.5. It went fast, which means a lot of early money came in on Indiana. People knew that line was off. Maybe they don't cover. Maybe this is a little bit too much for them. But I think Cignetti deserves his due in this spot. I do think Oregon wins the game. I think that Oregon will win the game, but I'm not going to pass up the opportunity to get a touchdown with Indiana here. I think the stats back it up too. Like we said, these teams look like mirror images of each other. It's two incredible quarterbacks. These are two teams with great offenses. These are two teams with underrated defenses. Everyone wants to talk about the offenses for Indiana and the offense for Oregon. These are two teams with good defenses. Mm-hmm. So this will be a great game. I don't even hesitate whether to watch Red River versus this. This is absolutely the game that I would be watching. I will be at a wedding. Don't tell Josh Pate that. But yeah, no, I'm gonna give the 7.5 to Cignetti. I'm gonna show some respect here because I was wrong in the preseason.
A wedding on Canadian Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
The other thing too that needs to be said. Look, I don't agree with it obviously, as I was very bullish on Indiana before the season too. I could see some people saying, okay, maybe Indiana is not going to be that good again, but you've got enough data points now. It's okay. It's year 2. The coach is basically a made guy already. And the quarterback's clearly way better. And he's got a better pedigree. And it's not even close. I'm not saying they're going to win the national title. The whole thing about, okay, this is a house of cards. Come on, guys. That ain't it.
And the narrative is it's even lazier than last year. Like I'm still seeing Heather Dinich, the Wicked Witch of the West on ESPN, try to tear this team down. She's this is like a 10 seed quality team in the college football playoff, and you got to watch for Texas to jump them. And I'm like, just like the
Texas.
team that lost to Billy Napier.
Yes. Fired Bill Napier, different thing.
I don't know why people are so mad that Indiana's good. Like I hate it. I hate it from a rivalry standpoint that Indiana is this good. We'll get you back in basketball. Don't worry. I don't see the argument. I think it's fool's gold to try to downplay this team. And even if they lose this game, even if they don't cover this game, like if Oregon wins by 10, everybody's going to be like, oh, see, that's Indiana. That's the real one. And then I'm going to hop on Indiana for the rest of the season, especially in that Penn State game.
Yeah.
Because I don't trust Vegas on this one, and I feel like they're going to do something really stupid in that game.
Yeah. Other thing too that's interesting, these are two kind of like bet-on teams for the most part too, so that makes this an interesting one as well. So, speaking of Billy Napier, not as excuse me, my dog's going to praise me. Give me 1 second. All right, the joys of having a Chihuahua. Okay. Billy Napier goes from the comfort of the swamp to the road at Kyle Field. Very different thing here. Just make a note here. The Apex Plus of Texas A&M is not 1,448. That would be an all-time record. That's 148. Look, all credit to Florida for beating an easily outcoached Sark and Arch Manning, who has one win over a Power 4 team in his illustrious career. Mississippi State last year, who did not beat a Power 4 team, I don't believe, last season. Look, I don't have to dig through the numbers this much. I just think this is a mismatch here. And I'm the biggest proponent of capital F fired Billy Napier. I just don't think it works here. You've got a definite top... You could argue Texas A&M is like a top 5 quality team. I don't see a lot of holes in the resume here. Just these numbers are not as high as the two that we just looked at here. But my gosh, if you're facing Texas A&M, if you're like my team, who's not type 5, I don't see anywhere to pick on here. They pass the ball well, they run the ball well, they're explosive, they're tough to run on, they're tough against the pass. I don't see it. They're not perfect, they're not Ohio State quality, but there's not a lot to pick on here. The only thing I can really say in favor, the numbers here are mediocre for Florida. If I'm going to make a case that the numbers are not fair, it'll be Dallas. Is it Dallas Wilson, the wide receiver that debuted for him last week? Was that his name? The receiver? Just absolutely skunked Texas. He was a former Oregon commit, and that was his career debut against Texas. So maybe Florida's a bit different on offense now, but this is not an easy venue. This is not an easy team. This is a really good coach they're going up against. I have it, and Athena has it both as an 18-point game against Robert. Again, Robert's model kind of poops on the parade here with only a 6-point spread. Robert, are you going to, notwithstanding the sweatshirt that you're wearing here, are you going to go against your model here? Or are you actually feeling the Gators? Are you sitting this one out?
So, here's the thing, and just a quick shout out here. Remember, this is, as Joel Klatt said, this is the beginning of Florida getting to the CFP, right? They got to win this week, and then the next week. And if you bet on Florida to make the CFP at 18-1, it's just plus 200 to get to next week, and then another plus. It's just like just bet money lines at that point, like seriously. But no, my model hasn't loved Texas A&M. I suspect that's something to do with Notre Dame. I suspect, because they let a lot of points up against Notre Dame, and because my model actually liked Mississippi State against Texas A&M, and they crushed them. So I think my model is not 100% sold on Texas A&M yet. Also, I would assume this is also probably a similar fate to what's happening with UCLA being a little overvalued. I think Florida might be a little overvalued for the same thing. The thing is, last week I was let me correct this here. I bet on Texas last week, 100%. The bet on Texas was not a bet on Texas. It was a bet against Florida. I'm like, this Florida team is bad. This Texas team is not good, but it is better than this bad Florida team. The horrendous thing we saw last week, I did not come away from that thinking, wow, Florida's suddenly good. I'm like, no, Texas is worse than we thought it was. It's not Florida is good. Florida is still bad. That is still... the thing is, 7.5... we have seen ups and downs from this team. We've seen this team score 7 points against Miami, and we've also seen this team beat Texas. Now, they also made some really stupid mistakes too in that game. I think Billy Napier made a dumb mistake that gave Texas an extra 30 seconds. It's stuff like this where it's just this is the best you could. Your basically coaching life is on the line, and you give Texas extra 30 seconds. Now, it didn't matter because I'm fairly sure Manning threw a pick, so it didn't matter anyways. But again, it's great. We just count on it and be like, yeah, of course. The like former number 1 overall draft pick like favorite is just going to throw an interception. It'll be fine. Don't worry. But this is the world we live in here. I think Elko is a far better coach than Billy Napier. I'm probably going to leave this one alone, but I do Texas A&M a lot. I think my model is really weak on them for now, so I think that for me alone, that's just enough to just pass on this.
Yeah, fair. Isaiah, let me ask you this. Do you see any other path for Florida keeping it close other than I outlined? Yeah, this Dallas kid is just, he makes the offense just completely different than what we've seen against the likes of Long Island and LSU.
Yeah, I think the way that this game is close is if this is like basically an Iowa football game in the SEC. I think this would have to be really slow, probably a lot of turnovers, like a lot of slop in this game for for Florida to be in it and have a chance at the end of steal. I don't need to sugarcoat or anything that I think that the Billy Napier thing is just hilarious. The guy is basically fired as far as I'm considered, and beating whatever is left of Texas's preseason hype just doesn't convince me otherwise. I was strongly leaning to Florida spread last week against Texas, and I only stayed off it because I saw so many people saying Florida spread was their play, and I just don't like betting public dogs.
Well, that number moved a lot too.
It did, yeah.
Like 9 to 5.
It just gives me like the creeps to bet a dog that has that much side on it. But it was what my gut said, and it wasn't because Florida was good. It was because this Texas team is terrible. Like Texas is not even mediocre. Texas is just really bad, and I feel bad for Arch Manning because all the hype around him was media driven. Like he didn't ask for that, but it's very clear to me that's not working, and I don't see a way that just magically fixes itself. This is like the UCLA Michigan State play in the mindset of no, the coach hasn't been fired yet, but he will be. But congrats, Florida. You got your big win. You're not going winless in the SEC. Now you got to go on the road in a tough place to play a team that is really good on both sides of the ball, play a team that is really well coached, which you're not. And I haven't played it yet, but I think I probably would definitely side with Texas A&M here. I think this is not only a fade spot for Florida, but all of the metrics just nothing here tells me Florida.
Yeah, I keep an open mind, but the path is pretty narrow there. Those numbers don't make sense other than just like
and also like Texas A&M hasn't really shown cracks either. Because the thing is, yeah, they gave up a lot of points to Notre Dame, but like Notre Dame they went to 0-2 after that game, but their other loss was Miami. That's not a bad loss.
Yeah,
and losing to Texas A&M is not a bad loss. So yeah. Notre Dame might still be. They're not elite. I wouldn't consider them worthy of the playoff because of their schedule, but that's still a good team that you beat on the road in a tough place to play. This Texas A&M has not had their Jimbo Fisher moment yet. They haven't dropped a game they shouldn't. They were in a slugfest against Auburn, but they found a way to win, and then they really took it to Mississippi State last week. So they haven't really had that moment where it's, oh yeah, this is where the wheels. Every season, this is where the wheels fall off for Texas A&M. It hasn't happened yet. But yeah, I don't really have a reason to think that it's going to happen at home this week.
Yeah. I do want to point out, too, the numbers aren't quite as impressive here as the game we saw with Oregon and Indiana. But one of the things through a lot of back testing that I've found is you only make money betting totals if you are betting on an elite offense or defense. And again, these aren't Oregon or Indiana numbers, but if you're over 8 on either side of the ball, that is elite, and you can make money betting when there's margin here. And you have a team that's above 8 on both sides of the ball, that gets it done. There's not a lot of teams that are there. So I think A&M's just a little bit undervalued. The other thing, too, is it almost seems like time to time unless you're talking about an off-brand team, there almost seems to be an NFL mentality on some of these SEC lines about just, 7.5 is a lot of points. Like it's an NFL game rather than college football is a lot more wide open, guys. I don't really think it is. You guys see that too when it comes to some of these big SEC games?
Yeah, I do. And it's not even just the SEC. It happens in a lot of conferences where you see a big number and you're like, there's just no way that can happen. But this is a sport where there is a significant gap between the good teams and the bad teams, and that in plenty of these games, whether it's this one where we might see it, or whether it's a game like Ohio State Washington, right, where it's like Washington's not a bad team. Ohio State is just that good.
Yep.
So
So we think.
One thing I will say about that, because that's the mentality a lot of people have with college, is, or rather the NFL, it's very common, especially in like primetime games. And this is the way the NFL designs it too, is that the entire game comes down to the final drive. It's, hey, if you can get a touchdown on the final drive, you can win the game. Generally, like they shoot for generally a spread along that lines.
Yeah.
And there's ways they impose that, like salary cap restrictions, the draft, all those things. College has none of those things, right? So there is nothing outside of just literally booster money keeping Florida and Texas A&M competitive. Now, they should do a theoretical good job of that, but that's it. It's not, oh, okay, Florida was bad last year, so we're going to give them the number one pick in the SEC draft. That's not a thing, right? So it'd be really funny if it was, but it's not. So this is the thing, right? It's just because a line seems big of one or two scores. And again, we saw Miami crush this Florida team. I think Texas A&M is as good, if maybe not as good as Miami, but probably equally as good as Miami in many ways. Maybe not like as good as Miami, but a couple spots lower. Nothing crazy, but it's probably up there. They're probably up there with Miami. So, yeah. And again, Texas A&M. Again, if you're Texas, man, that's gonna be a rough game, and that's gonna be a rough game on Black Friday there. I believe it's in Texas A&M this year, and I'm excited
It's in
for that
Austin.
game. Oh,
It's actually in Austin,
okay. It's on.
but
Okay, whatever. It's still pretty close,
Yeah.
but no, I'm excited for that game. That's going to be a hell of a game there on Friday night.
It is. And again, I'd actually argue that Texas A&M may be a little more complete than Miami. My numbers and my eyeballs need a little convincing than Miami offense, for what it's worth. All right, this next one is not as compelling, but look, I included it because I think there's some angles here, and this is what I picked in my preseason upset in the Big 12. Kansas getting 14.5 at Texas Tech, and Texas Tech has gotten, rightly, all the attention in the Big 12. The raw numbers for the Apex are in favor of Kansas, and once you adjust the Apex for strength of opponent, you've got, dare I say, a significant advantage here at the quarterback position for Kansas. Both teams run the ball well. Obviously, Texas Tech is more explosive. I do want to point out that Ryan is the one metric here that's not adjusted for quality of opponent. I'm a pretty smart guy, but I'm not that smart. That's where Robert and I would need to grab Isaiah and three other geniuses, and maybe we could figure it out. But so that's a raw number, and I think that kind of speaks to, people forget before that Utah game, Texas Tech was an unknown because their schedule had been so weak. So I think there's still some weakness or some softness, we'll say, in some of those numbers. Defensively, Texas Tech is definitely the better team here. I'm going to say that Kansas is not the worst defensive team around. If I go down to the power ratings here, 2.2 is not great. That's basically average for Big 12, but that's not bad. This matchup, I think, is just going to be fascinating. The Kansas offense, very highly ranked against the Texas defense, which is highly ranked. My model has Tech by 9. Athena has them by 9. Robert's model has them by 15. Robert's model is just ornery this week. Just going against me at every stop. I don't feel strong enough to bet this, but using the classic, if Robert gave me $100 to bet on this game, I'd maybe even alt-line this down to Texas or Kansas plus 10.5. I don't know how alt-lines work. Can you sell 4 points like that?
Yeah.
How do alt-lines work? Okay.
Yep.
I would do that then. I think this is going to be more of a game than people think. Of course, I thought that last week when Tech played Houston, and I looked pretty foolish. Robert, do you think this is more of a game than people think in terms of a 14.5 point spread?
This one is tough. I also got burned by Houston last week too, but that game was weird. Like, basically, by the time Houston was able to actually do something, Texas was already up 6-0, and I think they didn't score. Cause I think there was a field goal, and there was a fumble, and then another field goal, or it was a fumble interception. It was a very weird game at the beginning, and Houston just never got their footing. Kansas is probably better than Houston, but also I would have thought Kansas would have been able to dispatch Cincinnati. They didn't. I thought Kansas would have been able to do better against UCF, and they won. I think they covered the spread in that game, but it was close. Actually, I think the spread was 7.5, and I think they won by 7. So they covered, but again, you would have hoped to have more against UCF, right? It's Texas Tech is maybe just a really good team, and maybe that's what it is. And I don't want to touch this Texas Tech, I don't want to bet against this Texas Tech team. I've been burned by them against Utah. I've been burned by them against Houston. This is a no. This is not touch for me. This is just, I'm done putting my hand on the stove for now. If Kansas wins, I'm proud of them. I have their futures, but I'm done putting my hand on the stove on this one.
Yeah, Isaiah, do you think that, how do I say this? There's not just innate undervaluation on Texas Tech now. They're either going to be fairly valued or overvalued for a while here.
Yeah, it's really tricky because I think this is a really good team. This is the poster child for what you can do with a team in the NIL era, right? This is a literal example of, hey, we are a team in Texas, in the state of Texas, with a lot of money, and we're just going to go buy a roster, and we're going to buy a really good roster. And it is a really good roster. They play really well, and I got burned on them too against Utah. I didn't play them, or I didn't play the Houston line. I actually was going to play the Houston line, and I forgot to bet it. So I would have gotten burned by it. And I'm with Robert in that, is that my gut and the data says that this is a really good team, and I don't have any reason to think otherwise. And I just don't have a read on how they're matching up with some of these other opponents to want to bet this. So I'm staying far away from this game. I am going to note the final score and take a look into the game once it's over to see, because I do want to try to get some more reads into what Texas Tech is, especially as we get towards the end of the season and we start talking about them in terms of what can we expect in the postseason. So I am looking at their schedule right now. They're going to have a tricky game against Arizona State, but then Oklahoma State, Kansas State, tricky game against BYU, UCF, West Virginia. Two tricky games in there. The rest of that is there shouldn't be any issues. I respect Kansas. I respect their coaching. I think Leipold's done just a fantastic job with that program. That's a team that's not going to beat themselves. That's a team that's really well coached, a team with a great quarterback. We all know that. So, yeah, I don't have any angle in this game or any reason to touch this line. I think this is just a wait and see. And I think based on what we talk about later on this, we might have another data point for me to bring up as to why I want to wait and see on Texas Tech.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, kind of like Indiana and Oregon. These just feel like two bet-on teams. I don't, on a Sunday morning after I get back from breakfast, I don't go and look at my lineups and say, oh, who do I have to fade Texas Tech or Kansas this week? That's not that I have approach anyways, but that's not the mindset I would have. Tricky game. Yeah, the Leipold angle is just, I don't know. It's not going to bet it. I've said enough. Just keep an eye on, everybody has an eye on Texas Tech. Kansas will be an interesting team to watch the rest of the way too, just for a spot to play them. All right. If I'm, sophomoric in my approach, I would look at this Georgia minus 3.5 and think, oh my gosh, this is way low. And lo and behold, my numbers here, and Georgia's metrics have improved since we looked at them last. They've gone from mediocre to pretty good. This isn't great on either side of the ball, but they're functional plus. This is like above average SEC. I'm just still surprised. My numbers still have Auburn as a defensive team that's pretty good. The offense is, no surprise here, problem. If I just take a step back here, what just really stuck out to me, first of all, just was looking at this line, even from a non-sophomoric, if I can bestow that to myself, I thought this number would be higher, and it's stuck. I don't know if it's still stuck here at 3.5. Again, almost the NFL kind of feel for an SEC name brand matchup here. But lo and behold, my model has Auburn by 4, and Athena does too. Again, disagreeable Robert and his disagreeable model has Georgia by 2 scores here. I don't know. I guess, Isaiah, let me throw it to you on this. Does this almost look like a stink line with Georgia just only given 3.5?
Oh, this is a flashing red lights and run for the hills line. I'm staying far away from this game. I'm staying very far away from this game because especially minus 3.5 for a road ranked team against an unranked team and a top 10 team at that. That's the danger zone. And I think back to the one time as the most confident I had ever been in betting on a top 10 team to lose was when Michigan State with Kenneth Walker was minus 3.5 at Purdue. They were number 3 in the country. They were minus 3.5 at Purdue. And I was like, they're losing that game. And they did by a decent amount. Because I look at this game, right? And I think there's something to these metrics, right? I think Auburn is a very good defensive team. or at least a good enough defensive team, right, to give Georgia problems here. I think everybody's going to look at this game and say, oh, it's Georgia. This is Georgia. They're the playoff team. They're the team that goes to the national championship and wins. But are they? Are they really? Because if I look at Georgia this year, they've just not really been that impressive. I'm not saying that, oh, they struggled against Austin Peay. That's why they weren't impressive. And hey, kudos to you for the tough comeback win against Tennessee. But I've not. I think this is the first season in a while where I watched Georgia, and I'm not impressed with Kirby Smart's coaching. I don't see the adjustments I would expect to see from him and his staff. I think there's a lot of red flags under the hood with this Georgia team. At the same time, I don't trust Auburn. I think there's a lot of warning signs with Auburn's coaching. I don't know how much longer this coaching staff is going to be at Auburn. So, yeah, I think if you were to give me the $100 on this line, I think I would put it on Auburn plus 3.5. I wouldn't take a money line angle on this. I think I like the plus 3.5. Maybe Auburn does something stupid at the end of the game and loses it or something. But if it's my money, I'm not going anywhere near this. Now, also, underrated tough place to play. I think people have forgotten it because it's been a while since Auburn has been a top SEC team. That's not an easy place to play. And again, Georgia does have the win at Tennessee, so it's not like they can't go on the road and win games. But this was one that I did also circle in the preseason as like, hey, if Georgia isn't as good as we think they're going to be, and I didn't think that Georgia was as good as the preseason hype had them. Mm-hmm. And also, if you thought that Auburn was going to be better than the preseason expectations were, again, I wasn't in that category. But if you were of that mindset, this was a game you were circling as, oh, I could see Georgia tripping up here. So I'll be interested to see what the final score is, what the game kind of looks like. I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia is able to get out of there with a win. But also, is it going to be an ugly win? Is it going to be like an underperforming kind of win where it's, oh, we're really lucky to get out there, and then you have Ole Miss next week? We'll see.
Yeah, agree with everything you said. Even with that setup about Georgia's not as good as maybe we thought, and Auburn a little better. But Robert, just like you were saying about Texas Tech, it's kind of the other side of that coin. You burned your hand on the Texas Tech stove twice. Jeez, I would just feel silly at this point betting on Hugh Freeze because he's found a way to not find a way, right?
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? So again, let's just recap the last couple of weeks. Auburn almost covered the spread against Oklahoma, if not for a last-second safety that basically ended the game, and also covered the spread. Next week, Auburn had, I believe the spread was, I want to say it was 6.5, but it opened up 7.5. So they covered that spread against Texas A&M. Now, my model wanted to bet Auburn against Oklahoma. I didn't. Again, I bet against it for my better judgment. I think I already had some minus 3.5s from a couple weeks earlier for Oklahoma versus Auburn. So I bet against. The model was wrong. Oklahoma covered the spread, but barely. Then last week, my model wanted to bet Auburn against Texas A&M. I didn't. I just didn't touch it. And then it turned out that was correct because Auburn did cover, but barely covered. But again, Auburn has looked so weak, and I thought for sure my model was going to be on Auburn this week. I was like, yep, my model's going to want Auburn here. And this line looks like a line where this looks like the Georgia minus 3.5 looks 100% like a line where all the models have Auburn. But for some reason, the model likes Georgia here. I'm not sure why. Auburn's played competitively against OU. They've played competitively against Texas A&M. I think one of the things is that the model doesn't think Texas A&M is that good. They think they're good, but they're not that good. Now, maybe I could be wrong about that, and maybe Georgia's a little bit better. Maybe Bama's helping them a little bit. I don't know. But for some reason, my model likes Georgia over Auburn, and I don't understand why. I thought I was going to be betting Auburn here, but I guess it's going with Georgia here. Let me just check. The model here. But yeah, no, it's a very weird. I thought for sure I've got Georgia minus 14 points. So it's very weird. I don't understand why my model likes Georgia so much here, but it does. And the thing is, at a certain point, Georgia is probably going to blow someone out, and Auburn is probably going to start regressing to the mean here. And I think maybe that's just what the model's calling, right?
Yeah, and just the model tends to really like the quarterbacks, and there's a distinctive quarterback advantage here in the Apex Plus. Sometimes I like to think about, I'm just wondering who's betting heavy on either side here. I don't. As Isaiah said, it's a run for the hills line, so I don't know who's looking at this and saying, "Yeah, I'll only giving 3 on Georgia." That just sounds like sucker money. And just anybody who's betting Hugh Freeze at this point just sounds like a fool too. I just don't understand. Are smart people betting on this game?
This feels like a game with way too much volatility. It's like how we were discussing Michigan in the preseason, whereas there's so many reasons they could be good, but there's also so many reasons. Like, okay, yeah, maybe is Georgia a little bit not as good as we think, maybe, but also their only losses to Alabama, and Kirby Smart always loses. Like Purdue is going to make the playoff before Kirby Smart beats Alabama, so maybe that doesn't actually mean anything. And then it's Auburn I think this defense is pretty good because they frustrated Oklahoma. They probably should have won that Oklahoma game if SEC officials knew the rules. They probably should have won that game, but they didn't. And then they frustrated, who else did they play? It was, why am I'm blanking on this? Auburn played Texas A&M. Yeah, they only lost by 6 at Texas A&M. And they only gave up 16 points. So that defense could be good. But then also Hugh Freeze is coaching, so this could be the game where you realize that like Hugh Freeze is coaching. Yeah, there's just so many. I don't think any result in this game would surprise me.
Yeah,
absent maybe an Auburn blowout win, that would be a little surprising. But Georgia wins big, not a surprise. Georgia wins small, not a surprise. Auburn mild upset, not a surprise. But I'm not betting on one of those.
Yeah, this is a weird one. I don't know. Just monitor on the third screen kind of game for me. All right, next game. I take offense at this line. I'm a little partial to Arizona State. The interesting thing that I see here, the offense just hasn't been there so far, according to my metrics. Apex Plus of 88, a little bit less than Utah. Geez, look at this. The running games are about the same. The explosives are about the same. Utah, better than a good pass defense for Arizona State. That could be a little bit of a trouble here. But look at this, man. And we talked about this in the Week 7 preview on the main pod. Arizona State, I believe this ranks them 5th in defensive GGAB plus. Utah, this is kind of surprising for what we thought was going to be a classic Kyle Whittingham defense. 108 on the GGAB plus here, and I see that, and I see that there's probably not the opportunity here on the passing game for Arizona State that you might imagine. Dillingham's one of those guys I definitely trust to exploit that. Both my model and Athena have this 5 points in favor of Arizona State. Or in favor of Utah, pardon me. Robert's model is the one kind of where my heart is here. It says Arizona State by 7. I brought this up because it's an interesting game. It's notwithstanding my model. I just thought Arizona State 5.5 seems, I don't know. It seems high, but that's almost like the I don't know line in this game of college football. I don't know. If it got up to 6, I'd think twice about Arizona State. I just think Arizona State's got more upside here. This offensive number concerns me a little bit, but I'm just not buying Utah yet. I guess maybe that's where I start on this. Do you have more faith in either of these teams, Robert, than I do?
It is weird that my model really likes Arizona State here. I will say that my model did like TCU over Arizona State a couple weeks ago, and they handily TCU made a bunch of mistakes and they won that game because of that. But I think my model really liked TCU in that game, so I think that kind of that Arizona State winning that game relatively handily surprised the model, and maybe he's gotten Arizona State back up there a bit. I also think the model is just down on Utah in general. I think after that loss to Texas Tech, it doesn't think Utah is that good of a team. And to be honest, Texas Tech kind of dominated that game the entirety of the way, even with their backup quarterback. So I think that this Arizona State team is good. They're one of the best teams in the Big 12. It's unclear whether or not Utah is one of the best teams in the Big 12. This is yet another Big 12 elimination game. There's another 10 more probably, but that's what the Big 12 is. So yeah, I'm gonna play with Arizona State here. I think Arizona State has turned it around the last couple of weeks. Utah didn't look great against Texas Tech. I think they blew out someone, but it was at West Virginia, right? Yeah. But okay, so did BYU, no, right? So it's not, you're not getting my model's not giving you a ton of brownie points for beating up on West Virginia.
Yeah. West Virginia is kind of the voucher team where you just redeem your voucher for your win. You just show up. I guess the other thing too, to use you use this, you recognize this so brilliantly last year about Miami. If Arizona State doesn't have that really weird, dumb late play against Mississippi State, this line might be like 7 or 8 points different. Maybe, Isaiah, you think?
Yeah, and I referenced this game when we were talking about Texas Tech because I think a big reason that I don't know what Texas Tech yet is because I feel like I don't know what Utah is yet.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was, or a lot of people were on Utah in the preseason. Oh, they're going to have a bounce back this year. They're going to compete for the Big 12. And then as soon as they lost the Texas Tech game, it's like, nope, they're actually the same team as last year. They're out. And so I don't know if either one of those things are true. Like, I don't really have a gut feeling after watching this team. And I'm a Utah fan from my background. Like, after watching this team, it's like I don't really think they're a Big 12 contender. I also don't think they're 24 points worse than Texas Tech, because the one thing about that game is there were 6 turnovers in that game. There were 2 fumbles and 2 interceptions by Utah. There were 2 interceptions by Texas Tech. That game was wacky. So, like, there were a lot of things happening in that game where I don't entirely think that's a reason to either completely sell on Utah, completely buy on Texas Tech. I agree with you that winning even at West Virginia by a lot is not really anything to write home about. And the other thing, too, about Arizona State, like you mentioned, is I think the record on this Arizona State team is right. I think the way they got to it is wrong. I think, yeah, again, they should have beaten Mississippi State. They gave up that miracle play and they lost the game. But they also should have lost to TCU, and they just found the laser eye mode at the end of the game and came back and won the game, which, again, credit to you. That's what good teams do, and that's what coach teams do. I don't have a play on this game. My initial gut at seeing the line at 5.5 is that's a little too much, and I think I would lean towards Arizona State if I were going to make a play on it. But again, I think there's a lot of assumptions too based into that, because it's, again, the only real data point we have on this Utah team, because they haven't played anybody else, is that Texas Tech game. And again, is a 6 turnover game the best game to take your stats from? I just don't know. We do know that this is generally a tough place to play. So we'll see what Arizona State has to do when they go on the road. And I'm excited to see where this shakes out, because like we did mention, this is a Big 12 elimination game. I think it would be more beneficial to our views of how the conference looks is if Arizona State were to win this game, because I think we are all a little bit less strong on Utah's chances of actually competing for the Big 12, but we'll see what it looks like at the end.
Yeah, good point about it's maybe that informs some of the line here. This is a 7:15 p.m. Pacific time kick, so that's not a fun place to play, especially for a night game. That's really not a fun place to play. The other thing that Utah is just, to me, like a Rorschach of a team, in that you're going to see in it what you want to see in it. I'm still not sure what Devin Dampier is. I'll put it that way. I'm not going to say he stinks, but I'm far from convinced of his ability to play at this level. Now I'm going to talk myself into Arizona State here. I think if I had to go with teams that I think could stop him from getting crazy, this looks pretty good with a defensive GGAB of 9, 5th in the conference, or 5th in the nation. It's interesting. The other thing, too, is this number, I didn't even realize this until I put this graphic together. The defensive GGAB of 108 for Utah, GGAB plus defensively. I want to go over the teams that they've played that would be into this number. UCLA, before the firing. Wyoming, who, make your own joke there. Texas Tech, who we admitted is really good. And the voucher team named West Virginia. That's 3 really bad teams, and one, we'll say, powerhouse offensively. Only 1 and 4 should not skew your numbers this much. I think that there might be a little more that's available on the running game for Arizona State here than Utah.
I'm just trying to look through these numbers, because unless it was like a lot of it maybe was a couple like explosive plays against these bad teams, but I'm just looking at the rushing stats. They only gave up 84 yards of rushing to UCLA, so I don't think that's it. They gave up, 120 yards of rushing to Wyoming. That doesn't seem egregious. So yeah, are we overvaluing? This might do it. They won 48-14 against West Virginia, but they gave up 261 yards of rushing, which is weird because West Virginia didn't turn the ball over at all. So West Virginia went 4 of 7 on 4th down. How did West Virginia not score?
That's interesting. That's a lot. That's a year 1 rebuild, and the quarterback that's not really built for that system either.
I will say, too, the one other thing I think about Utah right now, I feel like this program's kind of in a crossroad position right now. It's not as dire as I think it is for Clemson, but I think it's along the same lines. I think you You have a good coach who was good in the old era of college football. I'm not entirely sure this program has caught up to what college football is now. Now,
Yeah.
I think Utah has the resources to be okay in the long run. I'm just not necessarily sure they figure out quite how to use it. And the biggest comparison that you can make is go an hour down the road to BYU and watch them throw cash at every player that they want to. The BYU's buying up anybody that they want, and that's a great program that they got down in Provo. So I think Utah's kind of got a choice to make here, and we'll see what they look like at the end of the year. But if it's a mediocre season, they're not gonna. This is not a fire Kyle Whittingham kind of thing, but I wonder if the program itself kind of looks at itself and says, "Hey, how are we doing this? Is this really?" We were supposed to come into the Big 12 and we were talking about we were going to dominate everybody because that's what we did in the Pac 12. But this, I think, some reality is setting in for this program.
Yeah, in fairness, Utah does not have a church that's sponsoring it under, unlike BYU, so it's a little different order. In fairness to Utah too, though, I think they might have thought they were doing that, and it looked like it to me too by getting Dampier in and Jason Beck. Don't want to get my Becks mixed up here. So it seemed like they were stepping into it, almost like they were stepping into 2023, and they're now a little bit behind 2025, if you will. That you make a good point there. I guess the other thing too, Robert, just about Utah, not to crap on the team, but their best win is, it's not UCLA, it's not Wyoming. I guess we kind of default to who's the other one that they've. What was the other one? West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Jesus, and you're talking against a team, Arizona State, that okay, they lost a dumb one to Mississippi State, but Mississippi State's actually functional plus this year. And I think all of us agree. Isaiah, you have talked with you about TCU. Robert and I were very bullish on TCU coming into the season. Great offensive mind with the best defense he's ever had, and they've only lost one game to Arizona State. I know it gets a little circular sometimes too, but I just think just on the resume here too, it just feels like Arizona State's the better team. No?
Yeah, I was on TCU in that Arizona State TCU game, so that was tough. But I do think TCU is a good team, and I think that was a really strong win for Arizona State, just not just to keep you in the Big 12 race, but also just from your mentality, like the ability to come back against that team, because that also involved they held TCU to 7 points in the second half. That's impressive. That's not easy to do. I think this is a good TCU offense, and I think that now we'll see what TCU does the rest of the season. They screwed around against a really just not good Colorado team, and then it was like in the fourth quarter, TCU remembered, oh hey, we're supposed to win this game by 14 and a half. So let's cover 13 and a half was the spread. So hey, let's run the cover play.
Yes.
But yeah, I think like I said, I think there's a lot to like about Arizona State, and if you gave me the money, I would probably put it on Arizona State to cover. But like I said, I think there could still also be some unknowns on Utah. And boy, no matter where Utah goes, it is really hard for me to bet against them in that stadium at night.
Yeah, it is. It is. I guess, Robert, how much can you buy that best win argument that I just put forward?
Yeah, I think Arizona State probably has it over TCU, right? That's clearly the best win. And you can make an argument that the best loss is the lot, with the exception of Texas Tech, but it was a closer loss, much closer loss against Mississippi State, and I think Mississippi State's a good team, right? So when you adjust it for margin, I think
and
the loss
venue,
against Mississippi
I want to point
State
out too.
and
Sorry to interrupt,
and venue, yeah, and venue. When you adjust for margin and venue, I think that loss to Mississippi State looks a lot better. Now, weirdly, they just could do nothing against Texas A&M, but again, I think Arizona State's the better team, and I think this Utah team might be a little overvalued here. I'm taking Arizona State here.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if I wake up Saturday with the bet on Arizona State, as I like to say. Okay, those are the games. Isaiah, again, thank you for filling in on our short notice. Hoping to have Duck back with us next week. We'll have a whole bunch of quacks to ask him about. Before we go, any games that you guys wanted to just have a quick word or two about before we sign off here?
We didn't do Red River.
No, we didn't.
You're right. I'm sorry.
I think that's definitely worth talking about. Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Let me see if I've got a graphic on here. I apologize. Did I not do that? Come on. I screwed up. I apologize. Yep, don't have a graphic for that. All right, let's just talk about it. Let's go to Robert Kekalua so he can his beautiful face can keep us comfortable as we talk about that. Sorry about that.
Do you have what the current line is on it? Because it's
It was off the board when I last checked because I think there's the Mateer unknown.
The material, yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you guys know about the Chipotle rumor?
Oh no.
No.
So
What's up?
apparently there was a rumor that Mateer was at a Chipotle's, I guess I'm assuming in Oklahoma, and apparently another person there was talking to him, and it's, oh, you gonna be good for Red River? And he said, yeah, I'm gonna be good for Red River, and that was like a week ago, and now apparently there's rumblings that he might actually be playing in Red River.
Didn't hear the Chipotle angle.
I think I heard of some people referring to this game as Oklahoma being favored. I don't know if that was official. I don't know if that was their personal angle on it or what, but maybe if there's some words of Mateer. The other side of it was I saw Josh Pate tweeting, and he said his friends at FanDuel informed him that if Mateer plays, they would have Texas as a 1-point favorite. If he doesn't play, they would have Texas as a 5-point favorite.
Yeah, guess what? FanDuel. So he said it was his friends at FanDuel.
That's right. It's his friends at FanDuel.
Texas -1.5, -105.
Oh, look at that.
So now for my model, I have. Let me find it here.
Let me pull up mine too.
I've got. Where is it? Why are you not? Now I do have it with. I have it. Yeah, I have Texas -4.5, but that is with the backup in, because I have the quarterback who played the most in the last game. But yeah, if you make the Mateer adjustment of 4.5 or whatever, then yeah, 100% we're right there.
Yeah, I played this on a look ahead. I want to say I played this maybe 3 weeks ago. This was obviously before the Mateer injury, and I took Oklahoma. I got it at +4.5. I also got it on the money line at +140, and then the Mateer injury happened, and I was like, you know what? I like Oklahoma still, because here's the question: what can Oklahoma do with a backup? Let's throw the offense away. This is a really good defense from what we can tell. This is a strong team on that side of the ball, especially compared to what Oklahoma is generally known for. I trust that defense against good teams. And so you're telling me that I get that defense against Arch Manning?
Yeah.
And also I get that defense against Arch Manning behind Texas's offensive line. That's really scary if you're a Texas fan. Texas went into the swamp and let Billy Napier just dominate them. Yeah, they came back at the end to make it respectable, but like in all respects of that game, Florida pretty much had it in hand. And Arch Manning looked really bad. Again, like I feel bad for the kid because he didn't ask for the media to do what they did with him because of his last name being Manning, but he has not shown any reason to think that he is a quarterback that can play at this level of football right now. And so what is the angle on Texas other than, oh, I think Oklahoma's backup quarterback could be that bad? Are you really going to bet that Arch Manning is going to come into this game, into this huge rivalry game, that Oklahoma really wants to win because Oklahoma really needs this one for this rivalry, right? Like they've gotten owned the past couple of years, it feels like. Is that really the spot where we're going to bet that Arch Manning figures it out? It's not for me. So if it's the backup for Oklahoma, I still like the +5. And if it's Mateer playing, then it feels that +5 look-ahead line looks really nice. And so does that money line. Like I think absolutely with Oklahoma, even if the backup is playing, I still see plenty of ways where they can come in and win this game.
Agree. My model actually has Texas by 2, by 17-15. Everything you just said, I'll put just one other little point of context about it. The last time that Arch saw a defense and a defensive coordinator this good was in Columbus, and it was pretty grisly until basically Ohio State just went a little soft and was just happy to give up some yards. I'm pretty sure that Mr. Venables will not go soft at any point in this one too. So I made a pretty strong case for the under in the main pod this week, and I can't see, other than just stupid things happen in rivalry games, I don't see a path for it going over the total of 42. I'm going to disagree. I've got a total, like I said, of 32 projected. I'm going to go against my model. I just, for the same reason you said, I don't see Texas scoring a lot of points. This is exactly, going back to the Sark thing, I heard a pod today about he has trouble in the big games. I don't know if it's like that. It's just as much as, I don't know if that's the That's a symptom. It's not the illness. The illness is, as we talked about in the week 6 review, he can't develop toughness in his lines, and that just declining year over year in rushing average just consistently. And this is, again, man, just every kind of Texas narrative is just bad in terms of what they're facing for Oklahoma here.
You know what's interesting too about the Sock narrative and the Texas narrative? Like coming into this season, and I think I fell for it a little bit. Now, it was a lot of me believing in Arch Manning when I think now you look back and it's, boy, they really put a lot on his shoulders. But like a lot of people also said, oh, hey, by the way, like this team was crazy good. Look at their record last year. And look, they went to the playoff semifinals and lost to the eventual national champion. And now they're coming back like they should be really good, right? But you look at what they did last year. Colorado State, Michigan, before Michigan knew at all what they were doing, UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State, Oklahoma. Then they lost against Georgia, Vanderbilt, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, at Texas A&M, which was a decent win. Like,
Yeah, that's. I was going to say, where's the good win there? That's the only
everybody
one.
came into this season crapping on Indiana and saying Indiana shouldn't have been in the playoff because they didn't win anything. Are we sure that Texas shouldn't have been the Indiana of this year? Like, what did we do to convince ourselves that Sark had figured this out?
I was just Arch Manning because it was just like he looked good in a couple games last year, so he must be good, and that was.
And you know what? We can even extend this to another Big Ten comparison because then they went to the playoff and they did the Penn State thing. Like, you played Clemson at home in the first round, which I think Clemson is very much on the downturn. I said it. I thought so coming into this season, and that certainly looks true. And then you had the Arizona State game, which had a lot of controversy at the end. It went to overtime. You win that game, but I think there were a lot of red flags in that game. And then you play Ohio State, right? And Ohio State was it was a low-scoring game in the first half, and then Ohio State put it away towards the end of the game. But that game felt like the Sark big game thing, where it was like, oh, you had all these chances to win this big game and throw this narrative away, even against a team as good as Ohio State. You didn't do it. And you played Georgia twice, and you lost both of them. You lost at home and you lost in the SEC championship game. So yeah, I think it had to be all just Arch Manning, which is crazy now. Like, they put everything in a number one preseason ranking on a guy because his last name was Manning. That's just crazy to me.
I was thinking about that actually, as much as I poo-pooed the Manning Heisman bet. I've been thinking about that. The hype basically was actually a good reason for that bet that you made, Robert, in terms of just, it's like, all right, almost he has to do is like just not screw up, and he's favored here.
Yeah.
He screwed up.
And that's the thing, right? If he had done a bit better against Ohio State, and if they had beaten Florida, and maybe if he looked a bit better against in some of the other games, like the path of Archie Manning, like being the favorite for Heisman right now versus where we are now was not that different, right? Like just beating Florida, one less interception against Ohio State. I think they had a goal line stop too. You don't have that goal line stop. We'd be having a very different conversation right now.
I'm just really, and I'm also just, I'm concerned about like how he's reacting like to these performances too, because it's like, again, you had all that pressure put on you. That's really tough, no matter who you are. But then like they've played 5 games and he's looked either bad or mediocre in 4 of them. And the one where he looked good was against Phil Longo. And you got him flexing in the end zone.
I was going to say, yes.
So you got him flexing in the end zone over Phil Longo. And then a week later, or no, you had a bye. And then a week after the bye, you went, again, you lost to, I cannot stress this enough, you lost to Billy Napier. But this just feels really off. And like I have so many cases for why Oklahoma should win this game. And other than like the backup quarterback comes in and throws like 3 interceptions, like I'm struggling to make the case for Texas here because I think given what we've seen from Arch Manning against good defenses, I'm not convinced that the backup for Oklahoma could possibly be that much worse. But it does lend to your underplay, Buck.
Yeah, I was just looking up there too. The flexing over, let me check the final scores here. The flexing over Sam Houston is especially
55-0.
Yeah, it's especially juicy now because great. You showed a team whose boss who lost to really bad New Mexico State by 4 scores. So congratulations on that.
We could do a whole Phil Longo pod and talk about
Yes, we could.
the guy who sunk Madison, Wisconsin
Exactly.
into the ground.
All right. We talked about Red River. Any other games that in my haste on Sunday I forgot to include, or just want to mention a thing about real quick?
No, I think you guys covered Michigan USC in the main pod this week, correct?
Yeah, what do you like there, by the way?
I think it's a really close game. It's one of those games where I felt like the line just absolutely, again, it was like one of those like really stink lines.
Yep.
I ended up putting a little bit on Michigan outright to win the game. I feel like that is a trap, and maybe I'm falling right into the trap. I'm just really concerned about Lincoln Riley defense against Michigan. I think
it is a horrible matchup.
Yeah, it feels like a game where Michigan's just about to run. Like USC defense against Justice Haynes could get really ugly really fast. Now, there's a travel spot here, and the argument for USC that I see is I'm really perplexed at why Sharon Moore appears to be afraid of Bryce Underwood. Because in all the games that Sharon Moore has coached, they're super conservative with him, and it's really weird. But like the 2 games that Biff Poggi coached, they were letting him run, they were letting him make plays, and he looked great. And it wasn't against 2 tomato cans. He went to Nebraska, and he looked great at Nebraska. So, yeah, I think maybe they go on the road, they have all this travel, and you play a conservative game again with Bryce Underwood, and USC obviously still has a really good offense. So maybe that's where the play for USC goes. But I'm just really concerned that this is a game where you don't even necessarily need Bryce Underwood to be good. Like, you can just give the ball to Justice Haynes and be like, hey, USC, stop him.
They won't. That's the thing.
That's what I'd be worried about. I worry about a game where Michigan's defense just plays USC's offense to a kind of draw, maybe 1 or 2 scores from USC. Maybe they kept holding to a field goals a couple times, but then USC's defense just can't get off the field against Michigan's offense, where they just keep running and running and running, and you just end up with something that's like 21-6 or something. Michigan. That's what I'd be afraid of, where Michigan just dominates on offense, and their defense is just able to stop Michigan. Is just able to stop USC from continually scoring, and that's the thing. But my model does have USC favored. Here we go. Yep, I've basically just dead even. I guess a slight play on Michigan here. I think Michigan in a teaser, if you could find a teaser leg for Michigan, that'd be great. Get up to 8.5, it'd be beautiful. Because I don't think USC is able to win this by more than a touchdown. But this is going to be a great game. This is going to be the night game. I'm pretty excited for this game. Yeah.
I agree.
Let me ask you both. If I'm putting a total of 2, and you have to go over or under for number of Michigan punts in this game.
I think I'd still go over just because, again, we don't. I know.
Really?
I think we don't. The only reason I say that is because, again, we don't know what they're going to do with Bryce Underwood. And there's only so much you can run the ball in a game, even if you're finding success with it. So I think my case for the over would be, like, you've gotten some of your running scores, and now or maybe we haven't gotten our running scores yet, where we start early, where we're throwing the ball. The travel, maybe it's the first quarter, right? Offense is a little rusty in the first quarter. We don't know what's going on. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if the over-under was 2, I would just say, okay, I'm just going to not look at that.
Okay. You'll play the push then?
Yeah. I think my concern, too, is I totally understand the dual model over angle here. But, again, I think my concern with that is what happens if this is a game where just Michigan is just running the ball and running the ball and running the ball. So you're going to burn a lot of clock on these drives, especially if USC just can't stop them. But maybe they're not breaking out, like, long runs. What if this is all just, like, Michigan paper cutting USC to death? I don't know.
No, there's no paper cutting. This is the machete to the face. What about you, Robert, on that too? You're going over or under Michigan punts?
I'd probably go over, but just because I feel like Michigan's going to play a super conservative game, and there's going to be they're going to stop them on some drives, and also maybe if you get late in the game, if they're up, they're just going to be like, yeah, put away to the defense. We know the defense can stop them. So I'd probably take the over, because I feel like there's going to be a late game punt where they punt it to USC and say, let's let the defense win this game. So that's already one. And if you get something like maybe in the second or something, then you're already at 2, and then I'm sure you can find another punt somewhere. So,
that's clever. Well done. That's why he's the co-host. Yes. All right. Cool. Thank you both. Appreciate it. good discussion. We'll be in touch over the weekend. Thank you all for listening and viewing. We appreciate your guys' loyalty, even as we battle towards regression above the mediocrity we've had in the first 2 weeks of the dual model plays. But thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate it. Robert, Isaiah, we'll be in touch, and good luck to everyone.
Yep. See ya.
Bye-bye.